Hi, I'm John Licata with Licata Group Real Estate Advisors. Welcome to the Licata Group Real Estate Showcase. Hi, I'm John Licata with Licata Group Real Estate Advisors here from Keller Williams Capital Properties in Stafford, Virginia. And I'm here with Phil Rodenberg, an expert on HOAs. We field a lot of calls, and we've gotten a multitude of calls on HOAs. So I'm real excited to have Phil here to really drill down and ask the questions so we can answer their questions. Phil, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Phil,
Let me see if I can help.
Phil, tell me, why would someone want to live in an HOA community?
That's a great question, John, and HOAs aren't for everyone, but there are a lot of good reasons to live in an HOA. Most of all, it has to do with the amenities. If you enjoy the kinds of offerings that a community has, but also when it comes to the private lots, there's usually enforcement on the private lots to ensure that there's some level of community aesthetics that it does not go below. And usually, the older an HOA is, the more important the older HOA community is, the better it would be to have an HOA there to ensure that things are enforced over time and don't degrade. They get better. And part of our purpose as an HOA community is to improve the value of each of the individual lots.
Do you find that an HOA community is better managed and has more to offer and attractive to more people than maybe someone living out on farmland?
It can be, and most of the time it will be. That you've got a board in place, you've got a manager. The community I work in is self-managed, so I've received training and I'm there to oversee all the activities of the association. So for the most part, it will be better than living out in farmland, but as I said, it's not for everyone. One question you need to ask yourself is, do you like to be told what to do? And I saw that on a real estate website one time, and it basically asked the question, if you don't like to be told what to do, you might not enjoy community rules, how you keep your private lot. But the purpose is for the community to be one, that everyone has a standard that they live by and enjoy life by. And usually there are a ton of amenities that you can enjoy, especially in a larger community, such as swimming pools, golf course, tennis courts, and other amenities, walking trails, etc., that would entice someone to be there. So it could be right for you.
So if someone's going to buy into a community, they're typically working with a realtor like us. What questions should the potential buyer be asking the realtor?
Well, one that I would highly recommend is that you ask to see the disclosure packet. And that's something that the seller handles. But as a buyer, you want to ask for that. That's going to be important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it will tell you if there are any violations on the lot. Perhaps there's a fence that needs to be repaired, or there's some sort of problem with drainage or something like that, or it doesn't have the proper grass growing. There's an issue with the association that's created a violation. So you want to make sure that violation gets corrected before you take over. The other thing is to make sure that there's no outstanding fees that you aren't aware of. You don't want to have that hanging over your sale, and you want to make sure that gets settled before you take over the property, or at least you negotiate with the seller who's going to handle that.
Is there an advantage to a large community HOA as opposed to a smaller community HOA in terms of the fees or the costs or the HOA assessment?
Well, yeah, and that's another really important question we want to ask. The basic question is, what is the annual assessment? And with the larger community, it's probably going to have more offerings. It's going to have more to take care of, probably more staff there to handle things. So the fees are going to be higher. But what I hope, and you would find in my community and other communities, is that you're getting more for more value. So be sure and ask, what are the annual assessments? And also ask, are there any special assessments? Because there may be a special assessment that you have to take over from the previous owner. Or it may be something you want to settle at the closing table, so you don't owe that. So real important to ask, what are the assessments? And then the last thing would be, what other fees would there be that you need to take care of? Perhaps you see that enticing swimming pool and you want to go swimming. Well, is it included in the assessment, or are you going to have to pay a fee on top of that? And the same for any kind of amenity. It may be free. It may be included in the price, or you may have to pay another fee. So it's important to know, depending on what you want to do, you don't want to be surprised later that, oh man, I have to pay on top for this? I didn't know that.
Phil, does a potential buyer in a HOA community, do they have access to the financials to see, or should that be a concern of someone buying into an HOA?
I think it should be. You want to know if they're meeting their obligations, and that disclosure packet, if you can see it, is going to have a lot. But also the website may have many of this information about the finances, about the budget. And as I said, it's better to get it through the disclosure packet. You may be able to find some on the website. I know some HOAs don't allow the general public to see some of their materials, but others have it open. You can see the bylaws, the declaration, their rules and regulations, their budget. They're on the public side of their website, but some don't. It'll be on the members only side. So again, if you can work with the seller, you may be able to get questions answered. Also, sometimes I get calls from prospective buyers, and we take those calls, and they ask us questions about, what are your fees, what are your budgets, what issues are out there that you're dealing with, and we try to work with them because if someone in the community wants to sell their home, we want to help them get the deal done.
If there's a concern of enforcement, how is that typically handled in an association?
Well, an enforcement question can come in from anywhere. Usually we get them from members who are concerned about other lots, or that would be a reactive way. So really it comes in two ways, reactive and proactive. Reactive, someone calls and says, I'm concerned about the way this property looks. The other way would be when you have an inspector driving around and doing sweeps through neighborhoods and noticing there's something that's wrong. That's more the proactive side where the inspector sees it. And usually it's handled by a phone call or a letter to try to get compliance. And then only then would we have to press it further to say, we need to enforce the covenants that you've agreed to. When you buy your property and there's an HOA, you're going to sign a document that says you receive those covenants and you understand that they're recorded in the courthouse. And it's, in a sense, it's a contract between you and the association to do your part.
What are typically some of the infractions or some of the complaints that you hear in the HOA?
It could vary, but a lot of it has to do with the condition of the home. If it falls into disrepair of some sort, if tall grass is another one that we want to keep everything neat and clean as best possible. But it could really vary. It could vary that it could be something as simple as you need to power wash the side of your house, to your garage doors off track and you need to set it back up. It could be anything. The worst cases I've seen is where a deck is essentially just rotted off because no one lived in the property, and we had to say, you need to come in and remove this and restore it, or the association would have to get permission of the board to go on the property and remove it because we don't want that to be a problem for the community.
So I'm hearing about, I hear you say permission. So I bought a lot. I want to build my house. Can I just build what I want? What do I do?
Well, that's a great question, and one of the most important aspects of living in an HOA community is the control of the exterior of the home. So you need to go and get permission from the board or someone that the board has designated. In my community, it's called the Environmental Control Committee. Some communities, it's called Architectural Review Board. And submit your plans for approval. And then once they're approved, you can build them according to plan. And the inspectors will come out to make sure that you have. Then after your home is built, if you want to change any aspect of it, you have to go back. This is the exterior of the home. You have to go back and you have to get permission to make changes. Now, if you're changing like for like, you know, you had black shutters and they got old and you want to put black shutters back up, that's going to be fairly easy. But I always recommend that you call and talk to that committee just to make sure you're in good stead with the association. Because if you want to change something, you don't want to get into your project and then find out you forgot to get approvals.
Do I have to get permission for everything?
You don't. There's things that you don't have to get permission for,
Okay.
believe it or not. And those would include anything on the interior of your house. That's up to you. But there could be other permissions that you need. For example, you want to move to the community and you've got a boat, you want to park in your driveway. That could be a problem. It depends on what you're allowed to have on your lot as far as what you can store on your lot. So it's always good to check with the Environmental Control Committee, Architectural Review Committee, or the General Manager's Office and see if you have a specific question. For example, some people that live in our community bring vehicles home from work. And we have prohibition against advertising materials on vehicles. So there's a way you can handle that, either with a cover or you put a magnet over that. But for example, if you had a large truck, you may not be able to park it on your lot. You need to ask first.
So I lived in an HOA in Reston before I moved to the community I live in now. Are they all the same?
They aren't. The HOAs, of course, they have to go by Virginia law, but they evolve differently depending on the community. And one of the questions as managers we often ask is, what kind of community do you want to live in? What kind of rules do you want? And of course, the recorded covenants are usually the baseline, but from there are often regulations that are developed that will make it unique. So not everyone's the same, and they evolve differently.
And what's the best way to learn generally about an HOA?
I would check their website to see how much is out there on the website. You can also see how much the board of directors or the management is communicating with people by looking at the website. See if they have an official Facebook page. See the kind of vibe you get from that. Are you getting the sense that it's a vibrant community, one in which people are enjoying living there? And you should be able to pick that up from there. But the website should be a good place of information. If not, I would call the manager's office to see if there's more they can offer.
The information that I have found is that HOAs are growing across the country, and as many as 65% of our nation has some level of HOA in a community. I mean, it's really something that as I mentioned earlier, we get a lot of questions on, and I'm really pleased that you took the time to come out here today. I'm very thankful that we were able to get someone who works in it every day to give us some great insights. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.